How do you get the parties to draw fairer redistricting maps? Redistricting is hugely important for who wins elections and who holds political power. Redistricting determines which voters are in which districts. In particular, the practice of partisan gerrymandering, whereby political parties try to seek some sort of an electoral advantage in how the districts are drawn, is potentially a big problem because it can sway the direction of elections. And so you have examples such as in states like Wisconsin, where statewide the vote share is pretty even between the parties, but one party has a supermajority in the state legislature. Redistricting is done in a couple different ways throughout the states. In some states, the state legislatures draw the districts. Other states have tried to insulate the redistricting process from political interference through, for example, independent commissions. And so that's the case in states like California, Arizona, and a few others. The performance of redistricting commissions, I think, is varied and depends a lot on the institutional design of the commissions. So there are some states where it's very difficult for the commissions to be successful in producing a map that's better than what the legislatures would draw. So for example, in states where there's the same number of Republican and Democratic commissioners and there's no way to break a tie, sometimes the commission will just deadlock and won't be able to produce a map. My co-authors, Max Palmer and Kevin DeLuca, and I wrote a paper called A Partisan Solution to Partisan Gerrymandering, the Define Combine Procedure. We split the map drawing process into two stages. The first stage, which we call the define stage, the first party draws double the number of districts that are needed. In the second stage, the second party, which we term the combiner, would then pair adjacent districts to create a set of final districts. And so the nice things about this idea are that first, it's relatively simple. It's just two stages. Second, each party has input in the process and can take into account their own self-interest. But the really nice thing is that the self-interest of the parties can, to some degree, cancel each other out. If one party reaches too far in the first stage, the second party can kind of undo some of that by making it harder, essentially, to gerrymander. The scenarios where we think this could actually be implemented, the first example is as part of litigation. So often there will be legal disputes over a map. A map will be found to be an unconstitutional partisan gerrymander based on a state constitution, or there's some other problem with the map where a judge orders that a new map be drawn. How you go about drawing that map is often contentious. One example is sometimes a judge will appoint an independent third party to draw the map, but sometimes the parties can't even agree on who that person should be. It wouldn't be too far-fetched for a judge to say the parties should engage in the define combine procedure to produce at least a first stage map that could be implemented to replace a previous map. There's also nothing stopping a commission from using a process like this to sort of come up with an initial map that they would then fine-tune. And so we think it could be used as sort of a starting point to guide negotiations over maps in legal disputes, in commissions, or even in a committee in a state legislature. Another question that comes up is how would you implement this in states where there are concerns about majority-minority districts and where there are cohesive minority populations and where Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act might apply. The idea we have for those types of scenarios is you could first draw these voting rights districts and freeze them in place and then apply define combine in the remaining space. And we show in the paper that that continues to work pretty well. We also developed a website, definecombine.com, which just would allow you to get an intuition for how this would work. And so you can sort of simulate your own map drawing process in a simple way online. And we have more information about the paper there.